The stars looked different that morning. Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, staring at the view screen with growing unease. His coffee had gone cold in his hand, forgotten as he watched the sensors paint an impossible picture. "How many?" he asked quietly. Lieutenant Ji-won Choi checked her console 3 times before answering. 57 ships, sir. Maybe more behind them. They just appeared at the edge of the system. 57. The entire Earth Defense Fleet numbered 43 vessels. Daeho set his coffee down carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter the moment. He had commanded the Indomitable for 6 years. He had faced pirates, Rouge AI constructs, and once even a rogue colony that declared independence. But this was different. "Send word to Earth Command," he said. "Tell them we have visitors." Down in the science bay, Dr. Hannah Park was already working. She had been studying the strange energy signatures for the past hour. Ever since the sensors first detected the anomaly, now looking at the analysis, she felt her hands begin to shake. "They're organic," she whispered to herself. "The ships are partially organic." The technology was beyond anything humanity had achieved. The ships seemed to bend space around them, moving without any visible propulsion. The hulls pulsed with what looked like bioluminescence. These were not machines. They were something else entirely. Her communicator buzzed. It was the captain. "Hannah, get up here. They're trying to talk to us." The bridge was silent when she arrived. Everyone stared at the main screen. A face looked back at them. It was humanoid, but wrong in subtle ways. The eyes were too large, the skin had a faint blue tint, and there were patterns on the face that seemed to shift and move. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the alien said. The translation was perfect, which somehow made it more unsettling. "I am Commander Thelen of the Velkari Empire. We have come a long way to meet you." Daeho stepped forward. "I am Captain Daeho Kim of the Earth Defense Fleet. This is humanity's territory." "State your intentions," Thelen smiled. At least it seemed like a smile. "Intentions? We come with an offer. Your species has achieved faster than light travel. You have spread to 12 star systems. You have done well, but you are children playing in a vast ocean, unaware of the predators that swim in the deep." "We can defend ourselves," Daeho said. "Can you?" Thelen's image expanded, showing a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of points lit up in blue. "These are the worlds of the Velkari Empire. We have existed for 12,000 years. We have brought 633 species into our civilization. We offer you the same choice we offered them. Join us willingly and prosper under our guidance. Your technology will advance. Your people will be safe. You will have a place in the galactic community." Hannah felt her heart race. This was it. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of since the first human looked up at the stars, but something in Thelen's tone made her uneasy. "And if we refuse?" Daeho asked. Thelen's smile faded. "Then we will integrate you by force. It is better for everyone if you choose wisely. We have seen countless species make the wrong choice. They all regret it in the end." The transmission ended. The bridge erupted in conversation. Ji-won was already running combat simulations. The tactical officer was checking weapon systems. Everyone was talking at once. "Quiet," Daeho commanded. The bridge fell silent. "Hannah, your assessment." She took a deep breath. "Their technology is at least 500 years ahead of ours. Maybe more. The energy readings from their ships suggest power sources we can't even theorize. If they wanted to destroy us, we would already be dead." "So we surrender?" Ji-won asked, her voice sharp. "I didn't say that," Hannah replied. "I'm saying we need to be smart about this." On Earth, Ambassador Minho Lee stood before the World Council. The chamber was packed. Every representative from every nation and colony had come. The news of the Velkari had spread across human space in hours. "They're calling it an offer," Minho said. "But it's an ultimatum. Submit or die." "We've faced threats before," said Councillor Su Yanan, the representative from the Asian Coalition. "We've always found a way." "Not like this," Minho said. "I've reviewed all the data. These beings have conquered hundreds of worlds. They're not raiders or explorers. They're an empire, and they expect submission." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some called for immediate military mobilization. Others suggested negotiation. A few even proposed acceptance of the Velkari offer. Admiral Subin Kang, the highest-ranking military officer in human space, stood. The chamber quieted. "We have 30 days, she said. That's what they told Captain Kim. 30 days to decide. I say we use that time to prepare. If we're going to refuse them, we need to be ready for war." "War?" someone shouted. Against an empire that's conquered 600 species? Yes, Subin said simply. Because the alternative is slavery. Maybe they call it something else. Protection, guidance, integration. But make no mistake, if we accept their offer, we will never be free again. Every decision we make will be subject to their approval. Every innovation we create will belong to them. Is that what we want for humanity? The vote took 3 hours. In the end, it was nearly unanimous. Humanity would refuse. Back on the Indomitable, Deho received the orders. He read them twice, then called his senior staff to the bridge. We're going to war, he said. Earth has refused the Velkari offer. They're giving us 30 days to prepare. After that, all hell is going to break loose. Jiwon nodded grimly. We'll be ready, sir. But Hana wasn't so sure. She had spent the day analyzing every scrap of data about the Velkari ships. The more she learned, the more worried she became. Captain, she said quietly, we can't win this. Deho looked at her. Maybe not. But we can make them regret trying. The 30 days passed quickly. Humanity mobilized like never before. Every shipyard worked around the clock. New weapons were designed and built. Soldiers trained. Colonies fortified their defenses. Children were evacuated from border worlds. Engineer Hyunwoo Nam barely slept. He worked in a classified facility, designing humanity's newest weapons, quantum torpedoes that could tear holes in space, plasma cannons that burned at temperatures found in stars, AI-controlled drone swarms that could overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer numbers. Will it be enough? His assistant asked. Hyunwoo didn't answer. He just kept working. On the 29th day, civilian reporter Ji Ho-yoon broadcast from the Indomitable. His camera panned across the bridge, showing the determined faces of the crew. Tomorrow, he said to his audience of billions, humanity will give its answer to the Velkari Empire. We choose freedom. We choose to stand on our own. Whatever comes next, we face it as we have faced every challenge in our history. Together, unbowed, and unafraid. The 30th day arrived. Deho stood on his bridge, watching as the Velkari fleet moved closer. Behind him, the entire Earth defense fleet waited in formation. Open a channel, he ordered. Theln's face appeared on the screen. Have you made your decision? We have, Deho said. Humanity refuses your offer. We will remain free. Theln sighed, as if disappointed but not surprised. So be it, you have chosen the hard path. We will give you one final chance to reconsider. But know this, we have done this before. We will win. We always do. Maybe, Deho said. But you're going to bleed for it. The screen went dark. War had begun. The first shot came from the Velkari. A beam of purple energy crossed the void and struck the destroyer Sol. The ship's shields held for exactly 2 seconds before collapsing. The hull melted like wax under a flame. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Deho shouted. Return fire! The Earth defense fleet scattered, breaking formation as more beams lanced through space. The Indomitable's weapons officer opened fire, sending a volley of missiles toward the nearest Velkari cruiser. The missiles exploded against an invisible barrier, barely leaving a mark. Shields holding at 97%, Jiwon reported. Sir, our weapons aren't even scratching them. Deho watched 3 more human ships die in as many minutes. The Velkari were toying with them. Their movements were lazy, almost casual, as they picked off ships one by one. Pull back, he ordered. All ships retreat to the Mars orbital station. The fleet limped away. They had lost 8 ships in the first engagement. 8 ships, and they hadn't destroyed a single enemy vessel. In the war room on Earth, Admiral Subin Kang stared at the tactical display. The defeat stung, but she had expected it. The Velkari were testing humanity's defenses, probing for weaknesses. They would find plenty. We need new tactics, she said to her staff. Conventional warfare won't work. We need to be unpredictable. Engineer Hyunwoo Nam was already working on solutions. He had been analyzing the battle footage frame by frame. The Velkari shields were powerful, but they weren't perfect. When multiple impacts hit the same point within milliseconds, the shields flickered. I think I can build something, he told the Admiral. But I need time and resources. You have whatever you need, Subin said. Just make it fast. 3 days later, the Velkari came to the Kepler system. It was humanity's newest colony, home to 2 million people and a major shipyard. The Velkari sent a small fleet, only 6 ships. Deho was waiting. They think we're beaten, he said to his crew. They think 6 ships are enough. Let's show them they're wrong. He had spent 3 days planning this. The human fleet was hidden behind Kepler's largest moon, sensor signatures masked. Hyunwoo's new weapon was installed on the Indomitable, a focused particle beam that fired in rapid bursts, designed to overwhelm shield harmonics through resonance. The Valkyrie ships entered the system arrogantly. They didn't even bother with defensive formations. Now, Daeho whispered. 20 human ships emerged from behind the moon. They opened fire simultaneously, concentrating all their weapons on a single Valkyrie cruiser. The new particle beams hit first, causing the shields to flicker. In that microsecond of vulnerability, missiles and plasma bolts struck the hull. The Valkyrie ship exploded. The bridge of the Indomitable erupted in cheers. They had done it. They had killed one. Don't celebrate yet, Daeho snapped. Keep firing. The human fleet swarmed the remaining Valkyrie ships like angry bees. They didn't try to fight fair. They attacked from multiple angles, focused fire on single targets, and used the moon's gravity well to slingshot around for surprise attacks. 2 more Valkyrie ships died before the remaining 3 retreated. The Battle of Kepler became a legend overnight. Ji Ho-yoon's broadcast reached every human colony. He showed footage of the Valkyrie ship exploding, played it again and again. He interviewed Daeho and Jiwon, letting them describe the tactics they used. We can win, Ji-ho told his viewers. They're not invincible. We just have to fight smarter. Across human space, morale soared. New recruits flooded into military training centers. Factories worked triple shifts to build more ships. Colonists who had been preparing to evacuate decided to stay and fight. But in her lab, Hana Park was worried. She had been studying the wreckage of the destroyed Valkyrie ships. The debris had been collected and brought to Earth for analysis. What she found disturbed her. Admiral, I need to show you something, she told Subin over a secure channel. In the Admiral's office, Hana pulled up her analysis. These ships were old. I mean, really old. Some of the components date back centuries. The hull design is outdated. The weapon systems are primitive compared to what we've seen in their scans. Subin frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying they sent their worst ships to Kepler. They weren't trying to win. They were testing us. They wanted to see how we would respond when we thought we had a chance. The implications were chilling. The Valkyrie weren't threatened by humanity's victory. They were studying them. On the Valkyrie command ship, Commander Theln reviewed the battle footage. His officers stood silently waiting for his response. Interesting, Theln said finally. They adapted quickly. Using obsolete technology against us was a clever trick. Should we retaliate? One officer asked. Not yet, Theln said. Let them have their victory. Let them think they can win. It will make the eventual defeat more educational. He pulled up a star map showing human territory. Begin Phase 2. Send modern ships to their border colonies. Not enough to conquer, just enough to pressure. Let's see how they handle fighting on multiple fronts. The war expanded rapidly. Valkyrie forces appeared at 6 different colony systems simultaneously. These ships were different from the ones at Kepler. They were faster, deadlier, and their shields didn't fail under the focused fire tactics that had worked before. Humanity scrambled to respond. The fleet was divided, trying to defend multiple locations at once. Admiral Subin knew it was a losing strategy, but she had no choice. She couldn't abandon colonies to certain destruction. The colony at Tau Ceti fell first. The Valkyrie bombardment was precise and overwhelming. The orbital defenses were destroyed in minutes. The colony sent out desperate pleas for help, but the nearest human ships were days away. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of landing troops or destroying the colony, the Valkyrie just left. They jumped away, leaving Tau Ceti damaged but intact. What are they doing? Jiwon asked. Daeho had a terrible suspicion. They're showing us they can take any colony whenever they want. They're demonstrating power. At Colony New Busan, Corporal Eun Bisong and her Marine unit watched the Valkyrie ships arrive. They had been expecting this. The whole colony had spent weeks preparing fortifications. Remember, her sergeant said, we don't have to win. We just have to make them pay for every meter. The Valkyrie landed troops for the first time. Eunbi got her first look at the enemy up close. They were tall, graceful, and moved with an efficiency that spoke of centuries of warfare. Their weapons were advanced, energy rifles that could pierce standard armor in a single shot. But humans had advantages too. They knew the terrain. They were fighting for their homes. and they were willing to do things the Velkari didn't expect. Yunbi's unit used guerrilla tactics. They set traps, ambushed patrols, and disappeared into the urban landscape before the enemy could respond. The Velkari expected a conventional battle. Instead, they got a nightmare of hidden explosives, sniper fire from unexpected angles, and civilians who fought as fiercely as soldiers. After 2 weeks, the Velkari withdrew from New Busan. Jiho Yun broadcast the story across human space. He interviewed Yunbi and her squad, showing their determination and courage. The message was clear: humanity could resist. Every colony that held out was a victory. But Hyunwoo Nam was working on something bigger. He had been studying the Velkari shield technology, trying to find a permanent solution. After weeks of failed experiments, he found it. "It's elegant, really," he explained to Admiral Subin. "Their shields work by dispersing energy across multiple dimensions. But if we hit them with a weapon that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, the shield can't decide which layer to activate. It creates a cascade failure. Can you build it?" "I already have. We're calling it the quantum disruptor, but we only have enough exotic matter to build 12 of them." 12 is enough," Subin said. "If we can take out 12 Velkari ships, we can turn this war around." The weapons were installed on humanity's best ships, including the Indomitable. Admiral Subin planned a major offensive. They would hit the Velkari staging area at Proxima Station, a former human outpost that the enemy had captured. "This is it," she told her fleet commanders. "We either prove we can fight or we lose everything. No pressure." Daeho looked at the quantum disruptor mounted on his ship. It was an ugly thing, cobbled together from human and salvaged alien technology, but Hyunwoo swore it would work. "All ships ready?" he asked. "Ready, sir," Jiwon confirmed. "Then let's show them what humans can do." The fleet jumped to Proxima Station. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The Battle of Proxima Station began at dawn, though dawn had no meaning in the void of space. Daeho watched the enemy position on his tactical display. 23 Velkari ships defended the captured station. Against them, humanity had brought 41 vessels, nearly their entire remaining fleet. "This is everything we have," Admiral Subin's voice came through the comm. "If we fail here, there's no backup plan. Make it count." The fleet advanced in a tight formation. The Velkari opened fire first, their purple energy beams cutting across space. 2 human frigates exploded immediately, but this time humanity was ready. "All ships with quantum disruptors target the flagship," Daeho commanded. "Fire on my mark." 12 ships fired simultaneously. The exotic weapons looked like tears in space itself, reality bending around the projectiles. They struck the Velkari flagship's shields, and something beautiful happened. The shields didn't just fail. They collapsed inward, creating a cascade of energy that rippled across the enemy formation. The flagship lost shields completely. Human missiles followed, slamming into the unprotected hull. The massive ship broke apart, debris spinning into the void. "Target the next one," Subin ordered. But the Velkari were already adapting. Their ships scattered, breaking formation to prevent the cascade effect from spreading. The battle dissolved into chaos. Dozens of individual fights happening simultaneously. Jiwon coordinated the Indomitable's weapons with practiced efficiency. She had fought in every major engagement so far, and she had learned how to hurt the enemy. Target engines first to reduce mobility. Focus fire on single ships. Never fight fair. The quantum disruptors worked, but they were slow to recharge. Each ship could only fire once every 10 minutes. In that time, conventional weapons had to do the work. Corporal Yunbi Song watched the battle from the surface of New Busan. Her unit had been assigned to defend the colony's last remaining space elevator. If the Velkari came back, they would need the elevator to evacuate civilians. "Think we're winning up there?" one of her Marines asked. Yunbi looked at the flashes of light in the sky, each one representing a ship dying. "I think we're surviving. That's all we can do." The battle raged for 7 hours. When it ended, 11 Velkari ships had been destroyed. The rest retreated. But the cost was devastating. 25 human ships had been lost, including 6 carriers and the dreadnought Beijing. 60% of humanity's fleet was gone. Jiho Yun broadcast from the battle site, his camera showing the wreckage floating in space. "We won," he said, but his voice was hollow. "We won, but look at the price." Admiral Subin understood immediately. They had proven they could hurt the Velkari, But they couldn't sustain losses like this. The enemy had thousands of ships. Humanity had fewer than 20 left. We need to change tactics again, she told her staff. No more fleet engagements. We can't afford them. Engineer Hyunwoo Nam was devastated. His quantum disruptors had worked perfectly, but there was no exotic matter left to build more. He had given humanity their best weapon, and now it was gone. What do we do now? He asked Hana Park. They had been working together, trying to find new ways to fight. Hana looked at the genetic analysis of Velkari tissue samples they had recovered. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it, she explained her plan. A biological weapon, a virus specifically designed to attack Velkari physiology. It would be humanity's last resort, their final card to play. That's a war crime, Hyunwoo said quietly. This is a war for survival, Hana replied. Morality is a luxury we can't afford. Hyunwoo helped her anyway. What choice did they have? The Velkari response to Proxima Station was devastating. They had been patient before, testing and probing. Now they were angry. The true armada arrived 3 weeks later. Daeho counted the ships on his sensors and felt his heart sink. Over 1,000 vessels, each one larger and more advanced than anything they had faced before. Get me a line to Earth Command, he said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. On Earth, President Soo-hyun-an stood in the command center watching the same display. She had been elected 2 years ago on a platform of colonial expansion and prosperity. Now she would be remembered as the president who led humanity into extinction. They're not going to negotiate, Admiral Subin said. This is an extermination fleet. Can we stop them? Soo-hyun asked. No. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. The Velkari didn't rush. They advanced slowly, methodically, destroying every human installation in their path. Colony after colony fell. First the border worlds, then the secondary colonies, then the primary settlements. New Busan held out for 3 weeks. Corporal Yoon Bisong and her unit fought for every building, every street. They used tactics that would have been unthinkable in peacetime. Booby-trapped hospitals, fighting positions in schools, civilians armed with whatever they could find. The Velkari were forced to fight house by house. They took casualties. Not many, but enough to slow their advance. On the 19th day, Yunbi's sergeant was killed by a sniper. On the 21st day, her unit was down to 12 people. On the 23rd day, they ran out of ammunition and had to use knives. When the Velkari finally took the city, they found messages spray-painted on walls throughout the colony. Humanity was here. We will not surrender. Remember us. Commander Thelen read the reports with growing frustration. New Busan was a minor colony, militarily insignificant, yet it had taken 3 weeks and cost hundreds of Velkari lives. Multiply that across dozens of colonies, and this war was becoming expensive. Why do they resist so stubbornly? His second officer asked. They must know they cannot win. Pride, Thelen said. They believe their freedom is worth dying for. Is it? Thelen didn't answer. On Earth, desperate plans were being made. Hyunwoo worked around the clock on new weapons. Conventional missiles that could be mass-produced. Kamikaze drones. Nuclear mines scattered throughout Earth's orbit. We're going to turn the home system into a graveyard, he told Admiral Subin. If they want Earth, they'll have to wade through hell to get it. Hana Park completed her biological weapon. It was elegant in its simplicity. A modified flu virus that Velkari immune systems couldn't recognize until it was too late. She tested it on the tissue samples and watched the cells die within hours. It's ready, she told President Soo-hyun. Will it work? Yes, but we'd have to deliver it directly to their command ship. And it might mutate. We could end up killing more than just the Velkari. Everything is a risk now, Soo-hyun said. Captain Daeho Kim volunteered to deliver the weapon. He had been fighting this war from the beginning. It seemed fitting that he might end it. His crew refused to let him go alone. Ji-won said she had come this far and wasn't stopping now. The weapons officer said someone needed to pilot the ship. The engineer said someone needed to maintain the systems. In the end, 47 people volunteered. They took the Indomitable, loaded it with Hana's virus and enough explosives to level a city, and plotted a course for the Velkari command ship. Ji-ho-yoon went with them. Someone needs to document this, he said. Even if no one ever sees it. The mission launched on a Tuesday. It was supposed to be a one-way trip. The Indomitable would fight its way through the Velkari fleet, get close enough to the command ship to release the virus, and then detonate. They made it halfway. The Velkari were expecting something. They had learned that humans were at their most dangerous when desperate. The Indomitable was intercepted by 7 heavy cruisers. The ship's shields failed within minutes. The engines were hit. They were dead in space. "This is Captain Daeho Kim of Earth Defense Fleet," Daeho broadcast on all frequencies. "To whoever finds this message, we tried. We gave everything we had. Tell them we didn't surrender. Tell them we fought until the end." He reached for the detonator. "Stand down." The voice came from Earth. President Soo-Yun-an herself. "Captain Kim, stand down. That's an order." "Ma'am, we can still complete the mission. We can hurt them." "At what cost?" Soo-Yun's voice was thick with emotion. "Daeho, we've lost. I've been watching the reports. 3 colonies fell today. 2 more are under siege. They're going to reach Earth within a week. If you detonate that weapon, they'll retaliate against the civilian population. We've done enough dying, so we just give up? No, we surrender. We accept their terms. We save what's left of our species." Daeho looked around the bridge. Jiwon's face was wet with tears. The weapons officer had his head in his hands. They had all been ready to die. Now they had to live with defeat. "Understood, Madam President," Daeho said finally. He put down the detonator. On Earth, Soo-Hyun-an composed the message that would end the war. Her hands shook as she typed. Every word felt like a betrayal of everyone who had died fighting. But she pressed send anyway. "To the Velkari Empire. From the people of Earth, we surrender." The message reached the Velkari command ship within seconds. Commander Thelen read it 3 times as if expecting the words to change. After 8 months of brutal warfare, the humans had finally broken. "Prepare occupation forces," he ordered. "And send word to the Council. Earth has surrendered." But even as he gave the order, Thelen felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, but something closer to respect. These humans had fought harder than species with twice their technology. They had forced the Velkari to commit resources that could have conquered 5 other civilizations. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Some people wept. Others raged, throwing rocks at government buildings and demanding the military keep fighting. But most simply went numb. The war had been their entire world for months. Now it was over and they had lost. Captain Daeho Kim brought the damaged Indomitable back to Earth orbit. The ship was barely holding together, held together by repairs and hope. When he docked at the orbital station, he didn't know what to expect. What he found was silence. The crew disembarked quietly. No cheers, no celebration. They had survived, but survival felt like failure. Jiwon found him standing in the observation deck, staring down at Earth. The planet looked peaceful from here, blue and green and beautiful. It was hard to believe it would soon belong to someone else. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. Daeho didn't answer immediately. "I think we did what we had to do. Whether it was right or not, history will decide." The Velkari arrived 3 days later. Their ships descended on every major city. They were massive things, blotting out the sun as they hovered overhead. Troops poured out, thousands of them, organized and efficient. They didn't come with weapons drawn. They came with scanners and tablets and an air of bureaucratic inevitability. President Soo-Hyun-an met with the Velkari representatives in what used to be the United Nations building. The room was packed with cameras. Ji Ho-yoon was there, documenting everything. The Velkari negotiator was named Overseer Dalthrix. He was tall, like all his kind, with the same blue-tinted skin and shifting facial patterns, but his eyes were different from Commander Thelen's. Colder, more calculating. "Your surrender is accepted," Dalthrix said without preamble. "Earth and its remaining colonies will be integrated into the Velkari Empire. You will be classified as a protected species under our governance. Here, what does that mean?" Soo-Hyun asked. Dalthrix pulled up a holographic display showing legal documents in both languages. "It means you will be allowed to live. Your culture will be preserved, studied, and displayed. In exchange, you will follow our laws, submit to our authority, and contribute to the Empire as we see fit. And if we refuse, then you will be classified as a hostile species and exterminated." "Is that what you want?" Soo-Hyun felt the weight of billions of lives on her shoulders. "No, we accept your terms." The occupation began immediately. Velkari forces established control points in every major city. Human weapons were confiscated. Military installations were dismantled. The remaining ships of the defense fleet were either scrapped or repurposed for Velkari use. Admiral Subin Kang watched as her life's work was torn apart. The shipyards where she had commissioned dozens of vessels were now under alien control. Engineers like Hyunwoo Nam were forced to hand over their designs and research. "They're taking everything," Hyunwoo said bitterly. "Every innovation, every discovery. They're stripping us bare." "That was always the plan," Hana Park said. She had been studying the Velkari occupation protocols. "They don't just conquer species. They absorb them. Our technology becomes their technology. Our knowledge becomes their knowledge. In a generation, it will be like we never existed as an independent people." The colonies were the next to fall. One by one, they were brought under Velkari control. Some surrendered peacefully. Others had to be pacified by force. New Busan was among the last to submit. Corporal Yoon Bi-song and the survivors of her unit were rounded up and processed. They were classified as combatants and assigned to labor details. "You fought well," a Velkari officer told Yoonbi through a translator. "Your resistance was noted. But the war is over. Accept that and life will be easier." Yoonbi said nothing. She had learned that silence was the only rebellion left to her. On Earth, life continued in a strange new reality. The Velkari didn't enslave humans in the traditional sense. They allowed people to work, to live, to maintain some semblance of normal life. But every aspect of society was now controlled. Schools taught Velkari history alongside human history. Children learned the Empire's language. Trade was regulated. Travel between colonies required permits. And everywhere, Velkari troops maintained order with quiet efficiency. President Soo-hyun-an remained in office, but only as a figurehead. Real power belonged to Overseer Dalthrix and his administration. Soo-hyun spent her days signing documents she hadn't written and making speeches she didn't believe. At night, she stared at the ceiling of her quarters and wondered if surrender had been the right choice. How many people would be alive today if she had let Dae-ho detonate that weapon? Would it have made a difference? Ji-ho-yoon continued his broadcasts, but now they were monitored. He couldn't speak freely about the occupation. He couldn't criticize Velkari rule. So instead he documented small things, human stories, acts of kindness in dark times, the ways people adapted and survived. One day he interviewed a young girl named Minseo. She was 10 years old, born just before the war began. She had never known a free Earth. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Ji-ho asked her. Minseo thought about it. "I want to be a pilot, like Captain Kim Y, because he fought for us. Even when it was hopeless, he fought. I want to be brave like that." Ji-ho had to end the interview early. He couldn't let the cameras see him cry. Captain Dae-ho Kim himself had been demoted. Not formally. The Velkari didn't court-martial humans. But he was assigned to work in a recycling center, sorting debris from demolished ships. It was intentional humiliation. The hero of humanity reduced to a janitor. He did the work without complaint. What was pride compared to survival? But at night, in the small apartment he shared with 3 other former officers, he would take out a data chip. It contained recordings from the war. Battle footage, transmissions, the voices of people who had died fighting. He never watched them. He just held the chip and remembered. 6 months after the surrender, Overseer Dalthrix gave a speech in the repurposed UN building. It was broadcast across all human territories. "You have been integrated into the Velkari Empire," he said. "This is not a punishment. It is an opportunity. You will learn from us. You will benefit from our protection. In time, you will understand that this is for the best." The camera panned across the audience. Human faces, carefully neutral, showed nothing, but in their eyes, something burned. Hana Park was among the scientists ordered to work with the Velkari. She was assigned to their biological research division, studying genetics and evolution. It should have been fascinating, a chance to learn from a civilization thousands of years more advanced. Instead, it was a nightmare. The Velkari were cataloging humanity. Every genetic marker, every inherited trait, every variation across different ethnic groups. They were building a database of what made humans human. "Why are you doing this?" Hana asked one of her Velkari supervisors. "To understand you," the alien replied. "Every species we integrate is studied thoroughly. It helps us govern more effectively." But Hana suspected there was more to it. The Velkari were preparing for something. They were mapping humanity's strengths and weaknesses with scientific precision. She kept copies of her research, hidden away on encrypted drives. If the opportunity ever came, she wanted humanity to know what had been done to them. The resistance, such as it was, happened in small ways. Workers slowing production. Accidents in Velkari facilities. Graffiti appearing overnight on walls, always the same message. Remember who we were. The Velkari crushed these rebellions efficiently. They didn't execute people. That would have been crude. Instead, they relocated troublemakers to distant colonies, separated families, restricted access to resources. The message was clear. Resistance is futile and will only make things worse. Former Admiral Subin Kang became one of those troublemakers. She couldn't fight, couldn't even speak openly against the occupation. So she did something else. She began writing a history of the war, compiled from thousands of sources, battle reports, personal testimonies, strategic analyses. She wrote about every engagement, every sacrifice, every small victory in a losing war. She wrote about the sailors who rammed their ships into Velkari cruisers when their weapons failed, about the Marines who held impossible positions against overwhelming odds, about the engineers who built weapons with whatever they could find, about the civilians who refused to abandon their homes even when bombardment was imminent. It was a history of defeat, but also of defiance. The Velkari found the manuscript during a routine search. They brought Subin to Overseer Dalthrix's office. Why write this? He asked, genuinely curious because someone has to remember. Subin said, "You won the war. You have our worlds. But you won't have our story. That belongs to us." Dalthrix read through several pages. "You write about your defeats as if they were victories. They were. Not military victories, but moral ones. We lost, but we never stopped fighting. We never surrendered our humanity." 3 years passed. Earth had become a museum. That was the kindest way to describe it. The Velkari preserved human architecture, protected historical sites, and even funded cultural programs. They displayed humanity like a curiosity, something interesting but ultimately inferior. Tourist ships from across the empire came to see the homeworld of the species that had resisted so fiercely before submitting. They walked through reconstructed cities, visited memorials to battles they had only heard about, and purchased souvenirs made by human artisans. President Suhyonan greeted these tourists with a practiced smile. It was part of her duties now. She stood in what used to be Seoul's city center and explained human history to aliens who barely listened. She was a tour guide in her own world. "This is where the peace treaty was signed," she would say, gesturing to a building that now housed a Velkari administrative office. "Here, humanity joined the greater galactic community." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. At night, in her quarters, she was no longer president of anything. She was just Suhyun, a woman who had made an impossible choice and would live with the consequences forever. "Do you regret it?" Jiho Yoon asked her during one of his interviews. He was one of the few humans she still trusted. "Every single day," she admitted. The cameras were off. Jiho always gave her that courtesy. "But I look at the children growing up, at the people still alive, and I tell myself it was worth it. We survived. That has to count for something." "Does it?" Suhyun didn't answer. Captain Daeho Kim still worked in the recycling center. 3 years of sorting debris had worn him down in ways combat never did. His hands were scarred from sharp metal. His back ached constantly. He looked 10 years older than he was, but he showed up every day. He did the work. He survived. One afternoon, a young Velkari engineer came to the facility. She was studying human ship designs for a project. She needed someone who understood the old vessels. "You're Captain Kim," she said, recognizing him from archival footage. "You commanded the Indomitable." "I used to," Daeho said. "Now I recycle it." The engineer didn't understand his bitterness. "Your tactics at Proxima Station were brilliant. We studied them at the Academy. The way you used obsolete technology against superior force was genuinely innovative. We lost, yes. But you made us work for it. That's more than most species manage." Daeho looked at her. She meant it as a compliment. To her, humanity's desperate struggle was just an interesting historical footnote. She would study it, learn from it, and move on. To him, it was everything he had lost. "Thank you," he said flatly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." The colonies had been reorganized. Humanity was allowed to keep 3 worlds, Earth, Mars, and the colony at Alpha Centauri. The others had been repurposed, given to other species, or turned into Velkari administrative centers. New Busan was now a training facility for Velkari troops. The city where Corporal Yunbi Song had fought for 3 weeks was a garrison town. She had been allowed to return not as a resident but as a laborer maintaining the facilities. She cleaned barracks where enemy soldiers slept. She prepared food in kitchens where they ate. She watched young Velkari troops practice combat maneuvers in the streets where her friends had died. One day she saw graffiti on a wall. Someone had painted over it, but she could still make out the words underneath. "We will not surrender." She traced the letters with her fingers and allowed herself to cry. Just for a moment, the children were the most troubling aspect of the occupation. A generation was growing up that had never known freedom. To them, the Velkari were just part of life, as normal as the sun rising. Minseo was 13 now. She attended a mixed school where human and Velkari children learned together. She was fluent in both languages. Her friends included aliens whose parents had fought against humanity. She knew about the war, of course. It was taught in history class, but it felt distant, like ancient history rather than something that had happened during her lifetime. Her teacher assigned a project about human resistance. Minseo decided to interview Captain Kim. She found him after work, standing in line for the transit system. He looked tired and old. "Not like the hero from the history books, excuse me," she said nervously.
"Are you Captain Daeho Kim?"
He looked at her with empty eyes. "Who's asking?" "I'm Minseo. I'm doing a school project about the war. I wanted to ask you some questions." Daeho almost said no. He didn't want to talk about the war, especially not to some kid who could barely remember what freedom felt like. But something in her expression reminded him of Jiwon. The same bright intelligence, the same determination. "All right," he said. "Ask your questions." They sat in a small cafe. Minseo pulled out a tablet and began recording. "Why did we fight?" she asked. "The Velkari are so much more advanced. We couldn't win. So why did we fight?" Daeho was quiet for a long moment. "Because some things are worth fighting for even if you can't win. Freedom, dignity, the right to choose our own path. We knew we would probably lose. We fought anyway, but we lost so many people. Wouldn't it have been better to surrender earlier? Maybe, I don't know. But if we had surrendered without fighting, we would have lost something else. Our self-respect? Future generations would have wondered if we even tried. Did it matter? We still lost." Daeho looked at her. Really looked at her. She was sincere, not trying to be cruel. She genuinely didn't understand why anyone would fight a war they couldn't win. And in that moment, Daeho realized the Velkari had already won in a way he hadn't fully understood. They hadn't just conquered humanity's worlds. They had conquered the imagination of its children. "Yes," he said finally, "it mattered. Because we proved we were capable of standing up. Even against impossible odds. That means something, even if you can't see it yet." Minseo made notes on her tablet. "One more question. If you could go back, would you still fight?" "Yes," Daeho said without hesitation. Every time. Dr. Hana Park continued her work in the biological research facility. She had learned more about genetics in 3 years than she would have in 20 years of human research. The Velkari were generous with their knowledge, at least in scientific fields they deemed safe. But she had also learned something disturbing. The Velkari were preparing humanity for something. The genetic cataloging, the careful documentation of traits and abilities, it wasn't just for governance. They were breeding programs hidden in the data. Plans to modify future generations of humans to make them more suitable for integration. Hana found the documents buried in the research archive. Proposals to optimize human aggression levels, to enhance docility, to eliminate what the Velkari called problematic independence markers. They weren't going to exterminate humanity. They were going to change it, slowly and carefully until humans were perfect citizens of the empire. Obedient, productive, and content. She made copies of everything and hid them in a secure location. She didn't know what she would do with the information. She just knew someone needed to know. Jiho Yoon found her one day sitting alone in her lab. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. "Worse," Hana replied. "I've seen our future." She showed him the documents. Jiho read through them with growing horror. "They're going to erase us," he whispered. "Not kill us, just change us until we're not human anymore. It will take generations. But yes, that's the plan. We have to tell people. Tell them what? That in 100 years their great-great-grandchildren will be genetically modified to be better slaves? People can barely cope with today. They don't want to think about tomorrow. But Jiho was already planning. He had spent 3 years documenting the occupation. He had footage, interviews, records of everything that had happened. He had been building an archive, hidden and encrypted, preserving the truth of humanity's defeat. Now he had a new purpose. He would document this too. The slow erasure of human identity. Future generations would know what had been taken from them, even if those future generations didn't care. Overseer Dalthrix called a meeting of human leaders. Soo-hyun, Admiral Subin, and several other prominent figures gathered in his office. "You have adapted well," Dalthrix said. "The integration has been remarkably smooth. The Empire is pleased. What do you want?" Soo-hyun asked. She had given up on pleasantries. "I want to acknowledge your species' unique contribution to the Empire. Your resistance, while ultimately futile, demonstrated qualities we value: tenacity, creativity, a remarkable willingness to sacrifice for abstract principles." "Is there a point to this?" Subin asked sharply. Dalthrix pulled up a holographic display. "We have decided to honor humanity by including your history in the Imperial Museum. Your war will be preserved as an example of noble defeat. Your tactics will be studied. Your sacrifices will be remembered." "How generous," Soo-hyun said bitterly. "It is, actually. Most integrated species are forgotten within a few generations. You are being offered immortality. As a curiosity. As a lesson in futility. As a testament to your courage," Dalthrix corrected. "The Empire has conquered 634 species. Most submitted immediately. Only 17 fought as hard as you did. That is worth remembering." After the meeting, Subin pulled Soo-hyun aside. "He's right, you know. In their own twisted way, they're honoring us. By putting us in a museum, by remembering it all." Years continued to pass. The occupation became normal. People adjusted.